Today's video is about a real-life scam victim who I will refer to only as T. T is an adult living in the UK and fell victim to a phishing attack. Now, our purpose today is not to mock or scorn this individual, but rather to look at the details and circumstances of the scam and see what we can learn from it. T has a home, a job, an internet connection, all the usual stuff. At the exact time of month when a direct debit payment normally goes out to pay for the internet connection, T received this message, stating there was a problem processing the latest bill. As we can see from the domain part of the link in this message, this isn't going to the EE website, but instead something called billing07.com, which of course marks it as a phishing message, but I don't think this is automatically obvious to everyone. For example, if they don't know how domain names work. This message is a scam, but it doesn't scream scam. You'll of course note that the message purportedly comes from a mobile number, which you might consider suspicious, but we'll come back to that in a moment. So, why did T fall for it? Well, I know a lot of people always want to chalk this up to stupidity. Scam victims are stupid people fall for scams. I beg to differ, and we'll go more into that in a moment. But let me just say this, I can't tell you T's profession, and I won't confirm your guesses if you try. You'll have to take my word for this. T works in a role that absolutely requires sharp mental competence, as well as acute skills, resilience and self-control that are beyond my capability. And the role requires those abilities to be continuously reinforced with training and testing. In short, T simply wouldn't remain employed in this role if stupid had ever been an appropriate adjective. So what did happen? Well, in T's own words, at the time I was in a bit of a low place mentally, but I still gave it a quick sense check. It's sensibly formatted, relevant and timely. And at first glance the web address looked legitimate, with an HTTPS prefix. Following the link I was presented with an extremely convincing web page, first asking me to enter my email address and password. Glancing quickly at the address bar, which showed me a green padlock, I complied. The following page asked me for my full name, address, date of birth and phone number. The final page asked for my debit card details, bank account and sort code. After thanking me for my details, I was automatically redirected to the EE homepage. Not wishing to log in again to check payment, laziness really, I went to the EE app on my phone and checked my billing. My payment had been successful the day before. I realised right away I'd been had. T goes on to say, going straight to my banking app to block my card as a precaution, I found a contact number for EE to query if I'd been phished. Remember that mobile number? On EE's own website, they have mobile numbers listed as contacts. Once again, I wondered if it genuinely had been legitimate. EE's representative dashed that straight away, telling me that it was an ongoing problem and I was far from the only one caught out. After hanging up on that call and calling my bank's fraud team, my card was cancelled and replaced, and we talked through whether any mischief could be done with the remainder of my details. Satisfied this couldn't be the case, I filed a report through Action Fraud and the police via 101. So T realised the nature of the scam almost immediately after falling into it, and by a combination of swift reaction, luck and some good habits managed to pull through it without suffering financial loss. On the luck side, T wasn't sure submitting the details had worked and so checked right away. The interval between filling in the phishing form and blocking the card was probably no more than a minute. The password T submitted was accidentally completely incorrect. The email address T gave was one used for correspondence with EE, but was again totally incorrect for login. In terms of good habits, the email address T gave for that account is reserved solely for utilities. It does not link to any regular email addresses, even as a backup. T's use of the bank's app enabled instantaneous ability to secure the account. T's social media is well hidden and protected from people outside of T's close circle, and any location information is either deliberately vague or outdated. And T always opts out of the public electoral roll. However, this wasn't the end of the story, as the scammers were not finished yet. So, in T's own words, I'd been visiting my family elsewhere in the country at the time, and 2 days after this incident I returned home. About an hour after getting back through the door, my phone rang, no caller ID. Thinking this was my parents checking I'd got back safely, as their number shows unknown, I answered. A well-spoken Englishman told me he was James, I think, calling from my bank's fraud department. Over the 12-minute call, he asked me to confirm my most recent transactions and the remaining balance in my account. He told me that someone had attempted a transaction using my details, and also emergency withdrawal of cash from a machine, both somewhere in the West Midlands. He asked if my replacement card had arrived. I told him it hadn't yet. He asked me to log onto my mobile banking app and access the Get Cash feature. Now, just to explain what this is, it's a feature on the online banking app that enables money to be withdrawn from a cash machine without inserting the card into the machine or entering the PIN. The authentication loop happens in the app. So the scammer probably had somebody standing at a cash machine waiting to enter a code to take money directly out of T's account. But luck was on T's side again, because for reasons unknown, the Get Cash feature was either missing or non-functional in the app at the time when this call happened. T goes on to say, whilst I felt confident in the authenticity of this call, something was wrong. Although the man on the end of the phone absolutely sounded right, the atmosphere did not. There was no background noise, as you might expect in a call centre. There was also a slight hard echo, like someone sitting in their front room. Having not asked for any more personal information or any security information, the man thanked me for my time and asked me if I had any questions. Only one. Could he please confirm the information to me, because as soon as this call is finished, I'll ring the bank's fraud team direct and confirm his credentials. The phone went dead right away, and my suspicion was grimly confirmed. The actual bank fraud team agreed and blocked my online banking as a precaution. They also advised me I could go into a bank branch and get my account changed. But at the time, that felt like overkill. Putting my phone down, I found I'd received the following text just before the phone call. Due to unusual activities on your current account ending in number, we have text I'm suspended your debit card. An advisor will be in contact with you shortly. T says, it really speaks for itself, doesn't it? Had I noticed this before the phone rang, I wouldn't in a million years have picked up. It's my understanding that this is a genuine phone number for my bank, so was probably spoofed. Since no further information was surrendered except perhaps what I sound like, I felt at no additional risk. And that was it. 3 weeks later, I went to a bank branch to re-enroll for online and mobile banking, and everything was back to normal, until I received a letter. The day after I emailed my employer's cyber awareness coordinator to see if they would be interested in this story, I got home to a letter from AA, the motoring group. They wanted me to confirm my details for an insurance policy by sending them the vehicle's V5 and various proofs of my identity, such as driving licence, utility bill, etc. I checked the number plate using the MOT checker, and the car that came back most definitely wasn't the one I've recently insured. Calling AA at the number provided, I explained the policy was nothing to do with me. They confirmed the letter originated from their fraud department, and therefore they would cancel the policy and presumably conduct their own investigation. Now that I had genuinely become the victim of identity fraud, I reported it again to the police via 101. This time an officer was sent out for a chat, but since I still hadn't suffered a loss, he could do little more than take the offending car registration and advise me to keep an eye on my credit score. Calling the bank fraud team once again, they advised I go straight into the branch and make the account switch. T says, as I finish writing, that process is almost complete, and I'm in the midst of moving all of my direct debits over, trying not to forget to tell my employer where I need to be paid. So, okay, analysis time. Let's take a look at what happened here, summarise some of the scammers' goals, and we'll also think about what makes people vulnerable to scams, and the sorts of things we should all try to do to keep ourselves safe from them. T clicked on a link that went to a fake but convincing web page that tried to capture a wide range of personal and account details. This part isn't the actual scam. No money is typically extracted here. This is more like the scammer's shopping basket for your information. Once the scammer has a set of data about the victim and their accounts, passwords and other details, there are a number of ways they might try to use them. In this case, the scammer, spinning quite a persuasive story and using a plausible persona, tried to trick T into enabling an emergency cash withdrawal from an ATM. The thing with the attempted car insurance payment is interesting, as this detail's new to me. At a guess, I think what might be happening here is the tail end of some sort of money laundering cycle. That is, the scammer took cash from some random person who wanted car insurance and hoped to fulfill that insurance payment with T's stolen bank details. Maybe you have an alternative idea about this. Let me know in the comments. With the benefit of hindsight and looking at the whole story we've just laid out here, I'm sure some people always want to chalk it up to stupidity. A couple of things about that. One is that there's this thing called the typical mind fallacy, where we all have a tendency to assume that something we've learned should be self-evident to others. We all came into this life knowing nothing, and we all only know a fraction of what there is to know. Not knowing a certain set of facts is not the same as stupidity. Secondly, I've chatted with T. T is not stupid. I suppose we could say T did something that was a bit stupid, but even if that's true, I don't think it helps. I've said it before, and I'm not going to stop saying it. If you characterise all scam events as acts of stupidity, it does nothing but inflate your own ego. And your inflated ego might make you feel safer from scams, but probably the reverse is true. By imagining that you couldn't possibly be vulnerable to such a thing, you make yourself more vulnerable, not less. Don't get cocky. In reality, there are many reasons why people fall victim to scams. Vulnerability in the form of temporary impairment of reasoning capacity can be caused by many factors, including anxiety, depression, dementia, bereavement, physical illness, loneliness, financial insecurity, as well as lower levels of cognitive development. Scammers will seize upon any vulnerability in their victims and may even tailor their scams on the fly to fit the specific vulnerabilities of their victim. For example, in my recent investigation into fake hacker scams, the scammers pretended to be very sympathetic with my character, who I said had been a recent victim of a romance scam. Here's another way to think of it. Predators like lions, cheetahs, hyenas and wild dogs prey on gazelles. Sometimes the gazelle that they catch is indeed simply a bit slower than the whole herd, but sometimes it's because the gazelle is already sick or injured, or tripped and fell in the chase, or was caught completely by surprise, or got cornered by the pack. In this particular case, it's my view that T was caught off guard in a low moment by a surprise attack, and the ensuing realization of the ongoing scam attack only served to increase vulnerability for a short while. Which is kind of similar to the pack hunting analogy. In running to escape from a revealed threat, the victim may very well run into or trip over a carefully placed secondary threat. So what can we do to protect ourselves against these ravenous predators? Scammers, that is. My only advice on hyenas is stay in the car. Firstly, and this is why I always labour the point, realise you are under threat. Alertness and composure of mind will help you. Thinking you're too clever will not. Remember that whatever steps you've taken to protect yourselves, scammers are working to circumvent them. Nextly, if you haven't taken any steps to protect yourself, do so as soon as possible. Talk to your bank about the best way to secure your account. There are often optional security measures that you might not have by default. Do it now, before trouble arrives. The same is true of many other kinds of accounts, such as email and social media. There are often security options, such as multi-factor authentication, that are opt-in, not defaults. If they're on offer, opt into them. Furthermore, the smartest people can make the worst mistakes when they're physically or mentally drained. T didn't ask me for this analysis, but reading between the lines, what I see is a smart, capable person working a highly demanding job, and probably even with a normal set of everyday pressures and concerns. This is a recipe for moments when the mind is elsewhere, or not functioning at even normal capacity. I'm sure many people can think of a time when they were so physically or mentally drained that they put their car keys in the fridge or poured coffee on their cereal or whatever. When you're at the end of your resources, it's too easy to robotically do a thing you would never do when you're at your best. Of course, there's nothing unusual about that in the world we've made for ourselves. Everyone is busy. Worries are not uncommon. Pressure and stress is everywhere. This might sound trite, and it's advice to myself as much as anyone else. We need to remember to look out for our mental and physical health and well-being. It's something we have to do for ourselves and keep doing for ourselves, because by the time someone else notices, and if you're lucky intervenes, there's already damage and risk happening to you. Now, the topic of how to look after yourself is probably too much of a sidetrack for this video, so I will just say don't forget to do it. Look after yourself. I'll put some links in the video description, but in the context of this summary, try not to make decisions or perform important tasks, such as dealing with apparent messages from your bank or service providers when you're exhausted. You're more likely to make mistakes, and you're more vulnerable to accidentally being scammed in that state. Finally, when something happens, take a moment to breathe. Very few things in life are ever so urgent that they will be improved by panic. When you get a message that says, for example, it's from your bank, stop and think. Is it real? If it was fake, how would you know? In most cases, the answer is to ignore any instructions, links or numbers in the message itself and contact your bank directly via the contact details on your statements. As a general rule, the more dire sounding the message and the more urgent the instruction, the more likely it is a scam. Take time to stop, breathe, think and compose your thoughts. There's always time to stop and think. No bank, internet provider or any other real organisation will ever demand that you should panic and react now. So I hope this has been interesting. Do share your thoughts in the comments, especially if you have ideas on how people can better protect themselves from scams. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you again soon.